if you differentiate yourself well enough, then you can demand a premium. If you differentiate yourself well enough, you will go out and stand out. If you differentiate yourself well enough, it's going to be hard for competition to come and take your spot.
Hey guys, this is Ramindu Randeni. Welcome back to my channel. Today's special guest is an entrepreneur who has built a brand sourcing the products from Sri Lanka, from our own ground. And his brand has spread into 16 countries as we speak, and even spreading more in the near future. This is none other than Shalin Balasuriya, the co-founder of Spa Ceylon. Often one of the problems that I see in Sri Lanka is our branding and promotion. And we are not actually up to the standard when it comes to international standards. How did you create such an appealing brand, and what's the thought process behind it?
Well, initially the thought process was that me and my brother, who's a co-founder, were working in my mother's business, which was Janet, which still is around, which was a mass market cosmetic and the first Sri Lankan made cosmetic brand as well. It was before the war ended. Growth domestically was very, very slow, and we were looking at a brand that would have the legs to go international. So from the inception, the whole premise beyond Spa Ceylon was to build a brand that could go international and have this strong branding that it could be accepted in an international market as well.
Yeah.
We were very plugged into the industry anyway, so we started doing our research as to what the new consumer trends were, what the new consumer was looking for. We saw they were looking for green products. We saw they were looking at older sciences, and it fit really well that Sri Lanka had Ayurveda.
Yeah.
And we realized if Ayurveda is presented well in a way that it appeals to a modern consumer, that it would be successful. And that's what we did. We started working on how to present Ayurveda in a way that it impacted the modern consumer's life, how to differentiate the brand, that when it went international it would look different, feel different, and therefore stand out in a unique way. Mm-hmm. And those are the elements that keep us evolving as a brand, and also the elements that went to create a brand that's quite strong in its identity.
Okay, so actually my second question was going to be, did you create in a way that you're going to position it as the #1 Sri Lankan product, or was it going to be an international product?
It was always going to be the whole goal was to go international. That
yeah.
being said, in this sort of business, you need to build scale and really tweak the product before you can go out. So we had to make sure it was successful locally first. It worked out well that the war ended just as we were launching as well, because the markets really opened up, tourism opened up, which was really helpful. But there is a lot of emphasis on how we present locally as well, and this will always be the home country. So this is where all the new products come in and prove themselves before they go to a foreign market.
Yeah, so as we speak, Spa Ceylon is present in 16 countries.
Yes.
And plan to expand further.
Absolutely. So in the next possibly 4 months, you'll see at least 4 countries coming online before the end of the year. We should be hitting close to about 25 countries.
Wow.
European expansion is happening this year. We're heading into China this year, which is going to be huge. So lots and lots of international aspirations, and we're happy to see that the consumers internationally are really responding well to the brand.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing to hear. So my next question is, Sri Lanka has so many family-run businesses, right? So yours is the same. Your mom has created a legacy, which is all about a few decades now. So what was the biggest hurdle for you to create a completely different brand, being unbiased to Janet's products?
Well, it's about understanding. It doesn't matter what brand you're creating, and it doesn't matter even if you're involved in another brand. It's about understanding who your consumer is and building the brand to suit your consumer. And that it was the biggest differential. Our consumer was different, our price points were different, therefore our packaging formulations, all that were different. And so we even to this day, we still run the other brand as well, and we are involved in the day-to-day operations of it, but it's about identifying that there are 2 different brands, 2 different consumers, and each brand has its own attributes and values, and drawing a very clear line between them.
Okay, brilliant. So you have mentioned in another speech that when you want to invent Spa Ceylon, you actually look around Sri Lanka and look around the resources that we have. Often Sri Lankans complain that we don't have resources. So how do you research for good resources?
Well, it's about understanding what you see. Like I said, when we started looking at what we could do to go international, we first looked out and saw what people wanted. Then we looked back in and saw how we could fit those needs with what we had. I mean, you could sit and complain about what we don't have, or you could look at what we have and how to use that or how to leverage that in a way that's meaningful to a consumer. And that ultimately is the key. It's fine to go in a room and make a fabulous product and come out and say, hey, look, I made a fabulous product. But if it doesn't make a difference to a consumer, you're not going to sell anything. I mean, it's when you're doing product, it's not really like art. Art is a creation, expression of yourself.
Yes.
And some people may like it, some people may not. You can hang it in your house, that's fine. But when you're creating product, the premise of it is that the product has to sell. It has to make impact on someone else's life. And you have to take into consideration how that's going to impact someone else's life and what you're going to use from what you have to impact someone else's life. So we look back into the country and every aspect of Spa Ceylon is from Sri Lanka. If you look at Ayurveda, we have a 5,000-year-old heritage in Ayurveda in Sri Lanka. That's our science. If you look at our ingredients, from our fruits to flowers to our herbs, all that are from Sri Lanka. If you look at these beautiful colors and this artistry, it's all Sri Lankan culture, and that's what we brought into our brand, and that's what really sets us apart when we go into international markets, and it's proving to be very, very effective in differentiating us.
Yes. Well, that's actually great advice. Often we create a product and then we try to pitch it to the international, and we often fail because we don't know a lot of things about customers' reactions. So yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, as you said, you have sourced all the products from Sri Lanka, even designs to everything in Sri Lanka, which is amazing. Now, as a person who lived in Europe, I know that India is very popular to be as the home of Ayurveda.
No.
So is that a threat for Sri Lankan Ayurveda and Spa Ceylon in particular moving forward?
I don't think so at all, because like I said, Sri Lanka has a very rich heritage in Ayurveda ourselves. So the science is over 5,000 years old even in Sri Lanka. So even within Sri Lanka, even now, there's a lot of research and development happening in Ayurveda locally. We've got a great Ayurveda university that's putting out Ayurveda doctors, so there's a good knowledge base in Ayurveda. Yeah. Apart from that, the brand or Spa Ceylon is bigger than just about taking Ayurveda and serving Ayurveda up. It's not about saying, hey, come and try Ayurveda. It's about, hey, come and try our brand experience. So the brand experience, yes, the core of the brand experience is Ayurveda, but there are all these other elements that come into it that make it a very complete package. So whether it's the art, whether it's the aromas, whether it's the music, even the music you hear at Spa Ceylon is custom music. So we've brought all those elements together, and that's what makes a strong brand, where you're not selling a commodity or a science, you're selling a complete experience, which has many layers, and that's what's working really well for us.
Okay, so attention to detail is playing a big role.
Absolutely, and whatever your product is, especially in the day and age where information technology is everywhere, everyone has access to whatever you create almost immediately. You need to create products that are a little more complex. You need to create products that have layers. You need to create brands that have values, different aspects that come together to create it, so that it's an experience and not a product or a service.
Right, right. So I mean, that made me think like it's quite a lot of learning is behind this product as well. So you have mentioned that in another speech that you have to keep learning. How do you manage to keep learning amidst all this busy schedule?
See, that's something our mother inculcated in us, that you need to keep learning, and learning is what you need to keep evolving, and that is even truer now because your consumer is constantly changing, your consumers' tastes are changing, the trends are shorter than it ever was, fashion is shorter than it ever was, fads are shorter than it ever was, so things are constantly changing. So if you don't learn, and if you don't change, and if you don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. It's simple as that. So learning, actually constant learning, comes from an attitude of not being satisfied or content that you've reached something or you achieved something. If you get complacent there, then you're not going to learn anymore.
Yeah.
So it's that hunger to keep evolving and keep changing and learning from really everything. Now, our learning is not always about sitting and reading a book or a journal or an article. It's a lot of learning internally from our staff, from our consumers. We learn a lot from our consumers. We learn a lot from our competition. We learn a lot from brands that are not even in our industry. So learning has to be on several different levels, and learn from pretty much everything. I mean, the amount we've learned from traveling is unbelievable, because different cultures, different tastes, way people react to things. We spend a lot of time just sitting in our stores or sitting close to our stores watching how people react to product, and it's amazing the things you can learn from that. So I think the short answer is constant learning is about, or continuous learning is about the attitude that you can't be complacent, that you know something.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks a lot. So another question I want to ask you. I see obviously you travel, you cook, you try to balance your life, and often I see most of Sri Lankan business owners burn out all their energies, living and breathing 24/7 in their business. That was like a kind of back in the day thinking that they need to put all their energy. What's your advice for young entrepreneurs?
Well, personally, me and my brother always say this, that we work to live and we don't live to work. And we're passionate about what we do, we enjoy what we do, but at the end of the day we are earning a living, as in to give us the resources to spend time with our families, to enjoy life, and that's why we work, and we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah.
And that work doesn't become the only thing in your life. Family and friends and love and sharing, all those things are such important things in your life that work should really facilitate those things and not the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we make it a point, since we're a family-run business as well, when the family meets outside of working hours, no one's allowed to talk about work. So
and do they stick to it?
We do. So even if one of us, brings something up, the other one will say, hey, no work talk, and we pull it back, and that's great, not only for us but our significant others as well.
Yes.
Because you have to separate the two and make time for yourself and your family, and that way when you do come back into work and when you are in work and doing work, you're more refreshed and you're more energized, and I think that gives you more of an edge.
Absolutely. That's a great piece for a lot of guys out there. So how would you advise for young entrepreneurs, especially when they want to pitch a certain product to international, in an international platform? What's your best advice for them?
A lot of the time, I speak to young entrepreneurs all the time. A lot of the time, developing Sri Lankan products, they think they need to sell cheap because we're this little country, and that's not the case. If you're selling a commodity that 200 other people have, yes, then price is a huge factor. But if you are selling a brand which is an experience, then if you differentiate yourself well enough, then you can demand a premium. If you differentiate yourself well enough, you will go out and stand out. If you differentiate yourself well enough, it's going to be hard for competition to come and take your spot. So a key thing is differentiation. Another huge thing is understanding your consumer. Like I said earlier, consumers' trends, consumer perception, consumers' needs, wants are changing much faster than ever before, so you have to keep track of that and make sure you're making products that fit your consumer's lifestyle. I think those two things are really key. The other big one is stories. People are not buying just products and services anymore. They want to know a little more about your product, a little more about your brand. What else do you guys do? How do you manufacture? Where are you getting this? It's like going and say, oh, I want to sell this chair. You say, I want to sell this chair because you can sit on it. It's a very basic sale. But you say, oh, I'm going to sell you this chair, and I'm going to tell you that this wood comes from a forest somewhere there, and this carving is from someone who's been carving for 5 generations, and this is a design that is inspired by something, and we give back with every cherry. So you're building stories about
Yeah.
your products, and that's what people want to see, especially coming from smaller nations.
Yes.
And when you go to Europe, when you go to the US, when you're out there, they want to know that you're making impact in where you're coming from, and they want to know more. And with phones and tablets in everyone's hands, it's very easy to find out more.
Yeah.
So tell stories, tell authentic stories, stand out, be unique, know your consumer. That's the way to go, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks a lot. And another very important question that I wanted to ask. Now, we have been suffering with brain drain in Sri Lanka. During the war, it was terrible. But even after the war, for some odd reason, there is a brain drain as we speak. Do you believe that everyone can stay in Sri Lanka and go after their dreams and build their life here without permanently leaving the country?
Well, I, for instance, wouldn't leave Sri Lanka for the love of anything, really. The day I finished my degree, pretty much on the day I did my last exam, I came back and wanted to build a life here. I think people talk a lot about quality of living, and quality of living is about the kind of life you lead, about having friends, about having family, about having leisure, and that for me is something there is in abundance in Sri Lanka. In terms of everyone succeeding, I understand in certain industries why people might need to leave and go do stints overseas. That being said, there are a lot of wins to be had in Sri Lanka. This is the best time in my lifetime to be in Sri Lanka. The country is opening up a lot. Things are changing a lot. So much development happening. Lots of new things coming in. So it's possibly one of the best times to be here and start something new, or go out and expand on what you're doing and so on. We've got our problems, but again, there's a lot of opportunity right now as
Absolutely.
well. There's never been a time where Sri Lanka has had more attention, positive attention than now. You see, we're getting picked as the cuisine to eat, the country to visit. I think today I saw something about being the best country to photograph and so on. So we're out there, we're in the news, people know us now. Even when you travel, you get in a taxi, you tell the guy where you're from. People know, either have heard about Sri Lanka or know someone who's traveled there, so there's a lot of attention on Sri Lanka. So it's a great time to be here. It's a great time to work here. And I think there are a lot of industries that have a lot of potential for our guys to come back and get going on.
Great. That's good to hear that. So lastly, enough of Spa Ceylon. How do you see yourself, Shalin Balasuriya, in 10 years' time?
Well, happy and healthy and surrounded with friends and family. What else would you want?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. That's great to know. So thanks a lot, Shalin. Thanks for your time, for joining me, and I wish you good luck.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.